This is an RNZ podcast.
How big is his hole?
The average age is 49 years old. Okay, Boomer.
Young and the vibrant versus the old and the boring.
Yes, well, this evening on The Whip, the government's move on orders in the spotlight this week, and Parliament's exit from X has caused a stir. And do we need more or fewer parties and politicians? And the government quietly ditches its quarterly KPIs. Winston Peters lovingly called it dashboard crap. With me this evening on The Whip, Andrea, Vance, National Affairs Editor for the Sunday Star Times and The Post. Andrea, kia ora, great to have you here.
Hi Wallace, how are you?
I'm very, very well indeed, thank you very much.
I'm like punch the lonely monkey down here.
Oh, not again. Where's Chris Finlayson when we need him?
I know, I miss my buddy.
Well, don't you worry, we've got good company over the airways with Dr. Grant Duncan. He's an Honorary Research Associate, Public Policy Institute at Auckland University. Grant, kia ora.
Kia ora, Wallace.
And we are joined by the Honourable Wayne Mapp, former National MP, former Minister in the National Party. Wayne, good to have you on the program.
Kia ora, Wallace.
All right, now to this, as we always do, let's go to our quiz question. So this is the Whip listener quiz, and here is a clip. Why was this music controversial?
Right now, our economy is growing faster than Australia and 28 other OECD countries. This election, the choice is simple. Stay on course to prosperity or risk it all on who knows what direction.
Now, why was that music controversial? Who was the musical artist we are referring to? 2101. Have a think. Anyway, Andrea, I was with Lisa Owen just wrapping up with the cheek point, and before we move on, and we were talking about Andrew Little getting into his rashi, seeing his knees and jumping into the harbour. This is your role here. Were you tempted to jump in with him? I want to know.
I know, I'm a wee bit worried that our mayor has become the mayor from Jaws. It's the 4th of July, everyone back in the water. God bless him. He's doing God's work, trying to get people back to the south coast and shoring up some of those businesses. I am actually a keen swimmer, Wallace, and I've had one harbour swim this year. We were planning to do a few trips around Island Bay Island this summer, but I have not been in the water, and I'm just going to leave it a little while and stick to the pool for a couple of weeks.
Okay, so just leave it. Yeah. Even though your mayor was in the water today saying it's safe for you.
He's taking one for the team.
Okay, all right. Now, on to the show. Police will have new powers to move on rough sleepers or people acting disorderly in town centres, but despite being mostly welcomed by the retail sector, the new policy has received a share of criticism. The head of the Police Association, Steve Watt, wasn't sure police should take on the extra work.
There's no doubt that it will have a drain on policing resources. It means that, potentially someone won't have a cop turn up to their burglary, or they'll be delayed because they're having to deal with this issue.
Now, Paul Gilbert, the CEO of Community Housing Aotearoa, told us on the panel, enforcement-led approaches just don't work.
And so what actually works is going out and meeting people where they are, building some trust, building some relationship, listening to what their needs are and then addressing them. And we're doing that all over the country right now. It's very successful. The police are on board with it. It's working really well. So we'd kind of be saying to the ministers, Goldsmith and Brown and Mitchell, let's do what works instead.
I bring this up, Wayne Mapp, because, this played out across the week, quite a big story. What do you think? Will this play well with the voters?
Yes, I think it will, because you only have to go down Queen Street in particular, which I'm familiar with, to see the issue there. And every tourist in the world sees that. And it's not like in the isolated parts of Queen Street. It's right down at the bottom. So that's not really appropriate. You've got to have a two-track strategy here, really. You've got to have, obviously, the social intervention, and I know the government's done some of that. They probably need to do more, but you also have to have the enforcement power as well. You can't just have people being shifted into parks. They've got to go somewhere realistic. They almost certainly need mental health treatment. Drug addiction's a major problem with that group. The police, the guy from the union, bit of shroud waving there, I've got to say. I'm not too impressed by that.
Okay. You are in Auckland as well, Grant, and you know very well that we see that in Queen Street, going up Hobson Street around the area of the RNZ offices. What's your take?
Well, the police have discretion, and this is a summary offence, so I would expect that the police can do both at once. They can build that trust and those relationships, find out about individual stories and what they can do. They should only use that move on power as something in the back pocket when they really need it. And I can say from personal experience that sometimes, yes, they really need it, because I've seen it and I've been attacked.
Have you?
Mm-hmm.
In Auckland downtown?
Victoria Park. But also, regular harassment. And so it's getting better, but I have sympathy for the people who are down on their luck. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that the police need a bit of extra power in their back pocket. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to use it every time.
So it's a nationwide thing, Andrea, move on powers. Last year, Mark Mitchell's office said police in Auckland should not be leading a response to homelessness. Then this week, bang, here it is laid in the police lap. What's changed here? What's your angle on this?
I hate to disagree with your gentleman guest, but sometimes policies come along, and I want to be erudite and sophisticated, but sometimes they're just plain dumb. Over the last 18 months, 3,500 people, more than 3,500 people have been moved out of emergency motels, emergency accommodation, and over the same period, homelessness in Auckland has doubled. Now, the government has exacerbated the problem. We're in a cost of living crisis, and I think this response is purely performative politics. There's an obsession with boosting tourism and major events in Auckland to drive economic growth, but at the same time refusing to fix the deep structural problems that mean that people, like the people on the streets of Auckland, won't benefit from that growth. I also question the timing of it. The decision was made by Cabinet in December, and they chose to roll out this policy at the weekend after that very unseemly spat over housing intensification in Auckland last week. I think it's a cruel policy. The police and the social services have said that it won't work, it won't fix anything. And I just, speaking of dumb and speaking of dumb politics, I can't emphasise how stupid it is to pick a fight with police in an election year.
Okay, interesting stuff there, Wayne Mapp, purely performative politics. What would you say?
No, that's wrong. There is a genuine issue here, and it does need both approaches. I agree with Andrea on that. You can't just have move on and nothing else. But you've got to have, I think as Grant has said, you've got to have that enforcement power in the back pocket. You know, we've all seen it. It's not, this is a real problem, Andrea. It's not something sort of, made up.
I don't doubt that it's a real problem, but the police have said that it won't work. Social services have said it won't work. There's nowhere for these people to go. We've had this issue in Wellington where people have been moved from the CBD into Newtown and caused the same problems for businesses and residents in Newtown. These move-on orders without the wraparound support are completely ineffective.
What would you suggest they do, Andrea?
Well, it's a dual problem of an economy that's struggling and mental health crisis and, homelessness. So three problems there. You need to solve those problems rather than just moving the problem out of voters' eyesight. That's not going to fix anything.
I totally agree with Andrea that the fundamental problem has to be addressed. I get that point. And so I don't see it as an either-or thing here. I just think that this is an extra power that police can use in the Summary Offences Act when they really need it. And by golly, I've seen situations where it would be handy.
All right, former Minister Wayne Mapp is here. We have Grant Duncan, Andrea Vance on tonight's Whip. Great responses, thank you. This week, Parliament said it had decided to stop posting on X, formerly Twitter. It happened alongside international backlash after thousands of sexualised deepfake images of women and children were generated using the site's AI. Winston Peters said it was moral virtue signalling that would damage freedom of speech. Now, the Free Speech Union's Ghislaine Heather told Jesse Mulligan on Afternoons that she was shocked by Parliament's move.
Wouldn't you want to put authoritative information, like information from the source, on all of those platforms? Because otherwise, by withdrawing from it, aren't you just sort of creating even more of a mire of misinformation and confusion?
All right, so Grant's shaking his head here. But let's go to you first, Andrea, because this was in effect kicked off by a piece that you wrote about politicians on X, writing the effect of authority figures remain active on X is to legitimise it. Why should politicians stop using X in your view?
Well, I mean, to start with, it's a bin fire of misogyny and disinformation, but that's by the by. I just don't understand why anyone in a position of power and influence would use it, because you're giving tacit approval to it by using it, especially now that we've had these concerns from women about, generating pictures of them with no clothes on, and then child abuse imagery. And that's currently under investigation in a number of jurisdictions in Europe. To me, it's like if you step away from X, it's a bit like when you stop buying chocolate because there's palm oil in it, or you're avoiding fast fashion brands because of sweatshop concerns. You're not complaining about it. You're taking an act of principle by choosing not to support a product and a company whose values that you would disagree with.
Okay, Grant Duncan. So official correspondence or official statements are still being put out by the likes of Chris Hipkins, David Seymour, Christopher Luxon, Winston Peters. What's your view?
Well, I guess you can judge people by the company that they keep, and there's some pretty bad company on X, but it's their decision as politicians. As for Parliament and government departments, I think they should get off X because of exactly Andrea's point. But if people are concerned about freedom of information, well, you just go to the department's website and find what you want to find. It's online anyway. X is not a necessary part of the information distribution environment.
What do you think about this, Wayne? And by the way, are you, because I look at it less and less these days, X, in fact, very rarely. What about you?
Well, I tend to look at Instagram and YouTube and Facebook.
So do I.
Not X.
So do I. I'm an Insta man myself too.
But I understand that X is trying to fix up these problems. Their owner has certainly said they want to. I don't think it's appropriate for public institutions like Parliament and government departments and so forth. There's, as Grant says, they've got plenty of options. A little bit different, I think, for political parties. They have, different audiences, if you will. People are looking for them, for opinion as much as anything else. They're not looking to Parliament for that. By that I mean the Parliament's official website. So there is a distinction between the government in terms of the civil service, if you will, and politics.
Are you enabling some of these darker aspects, Wayne, of X if you post on it? The child sex abuse images.
Well, they've said they're going to fix all of that, and I presume they have. Yes, they've been in some pretty dark spaces, and there's no doubt about it. Musk's approaches to a lot of things leave something to be desired.
Andrea, is it up to the Parliament website to do this in and of themselves? Shouldn't that go through a process?
Well, I don't see why not. I mean, it's his job. He's entrusted to do it. So I think he's perfectly entitled to take that decision, and he knows best the audience that those Parliament accounts reach. So if he thinks it's not appropriate, then I don't see an issue with that. And I mean, you only have to look at X since this decision was made and the abuse that has been directed at him and me actually for taking that decision. It's not a pleasant world to be in. X.
You've had.
Can I tell you a story about X, Wallace? And I don't normally like to talk about this stuff publicly, but I think it's relevant to the discussion. My address was posted on X last year, and my workplace had to take security measures to protect me because they were so worried about that. We had a very difficult time getting X to take my personal home address off X. So for all they say about moderation and making it a safe place, it's absolute nonsense. It's particularly as a woman, it's very difficult to exist on X. And I just think why as a politician or a senior public service would you want to be involved in that, give your business to that product.
Andrea Vance with us this evening, Dr. Grant Duncan and Wayne Mapp on tonight's Whip. Thank you very much for your feedback. Get in touch with us. We are on iHeart, Spotify and on the NZDF. You can get in touch with the Whip that way. But to our quiz now, it is 7:46. Why was this music controversial?
Right now, our economy is growing faster than Australia and 28 other OECD countries. This election, the choice is simple. Stay on course to prosperity or risk it all on who knows what direction.
All right, don't tell us yet, Wayne, but do you have any ideas? Do you have any?
I know the minister.
You know the minister. Grant, do you have any ideas there?
Oh, well, I know it was a copyright issue, and I'm just having difficulty remembering.
Stay right there. Stay right there.
It's pretty legal.
It's because
Exactly.
with us, we have Angela in Christchurch. Kia ora, Angela.
Kia ora, Wallace, in the panel.
It's lovely to have you here, Angela. All right, so why was that music controversial?
Yes, well, it was used during National's election campaign in 2014, and it sounds really familiar, doesn't it? And that's because it's a takeoff of Eminem's Lose Yourself.
Is that right, Andrea?
It was. It was one of the best election campaign stories. It was fabulous.
Yeah, it was, wasn't
it really was fabulous.
That's
I have
right.
a great memory of colleagues dancing around the gallery offices in that campaign to that tune.
Yeah, Angela, are you an Eminem fan? Is that why you noticed it?
Well, it's a pretty cool song. Everyone knows that song, and National knew it too, and so did Eminem's publishers, and they took them to court, to the High Court, and then on to the Court of Appeal.
Yes, that's right. Very nice to have you here, Angela. Thank you. All right, there you go. So, by the way, Eminem won $600K after the New Zealand political party breached its copyright. But actually, Wayne Mapp, I think that was a little bit after your time, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, but I certainly followed that with some amusement.
Right. Yeah.
As Andrea says, pretty legal doesn't quite cut it.
A great quote.
But a great political catchphrase was born.
That would make the title of a very good political memoir. Pretty legal. All right, now, the New Zealand Defence Force, I find this interesting, has frozen a program which featured Māori cosmology after New Zealand first raised it with Defence Minister Judith Collins. The program was described as a cultural skills framework designed to set expectations on leaders for tikanga and te reo. It's just a part of the Defence Force bicultural policy. It's been paused after Judith Collins intervened, current Defence Minister. Now, David Seymour said the Defence Forces should have told the Minister about the program. Well, Wayne Mapp, you are a former Defence Minister. I thought it'd be interesting to get your views and your take. Would you have expected to have been told? What's your view?
No, I wouldn't have. Ngāti Taumanga has been in existence since 1994, over 30 years. Of all the Defence Forces, the three of them, the Army, more than any of the others, is bicultural. You feel that every time you go to a base or a camp, and the Navy has moved in that direction as well. So it just seems to me part of the ethos of what defence is actually about these days. And to ask senior officers to know a little waiata and be able to have at least some te reo is hardly an imposition. They would actually presumably know that anyway. People have made a big fuss about, this was an order. That's how defence communicates. That's, when you sort of say, this is what we want you to do, or this is, how you should do it, that's called an order. Why is that so controversial?
Grant, Duncan.
Oh, I got the impression that Peters and Seymour had just found something to sound off about, honestly, and embarrass the minister and surprise her a little bit, perhaps because maybe she hadn't been informed about it. But I'm with Wayne on this. I think probably this has always been, for a long time, a part of the armed forces culture, and it's just an extension of that. Maybe there's a question as to who was going to do this training and how much was it going to be an extra cost, etc. I don't know, but I just see it as populist tub thumping.
Populist tub thumping, says Dr. Grant. I mean, is there a what was the David Seymour's offence? Do we really need it? Is it does it necessarily have to be part of the armed forces to have a bicultural aspect? I'm just asking questions, Wayne. Just asking.
Okay, Gary Brownlee.
Yeah,
there must be an election coming. Is all I can say.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Can we just? For the next 8 months, can we just take every piece of faux outrage over biculturalism and just view it through that lens? It's an election year. We really don't need to take it seriously.
I mean, the policy was leaked and circulated among former officers. Wayne, might that point to dissent in the ranks?
Well, there's probably a generational change, to be honest. And as indeed as there is right across society. And so, I see on various websites and, friends complain about these things, but you don't get that from younger people, at least not nearly so much. Perhaps, you do a little bit, but not nearly so much. New Zealand is changing. It's always harder for the older generation to get to grips with that.
Very interesting comments there. So there you go, the views of former Defence Minister Wayne Mapp on that, the bicultural policy in the defence. We've got Grant, Duncan and Andrea, Vance. Now, last week on The Whip, newsroom editor Jonathan Milne threw this little nugget into the mix.
What would really make the difference in terms of better quality lawmaking? More MPs. And Simon Upton makes this point as well. We need 150 MPs, not 120 MPs, so that they've got more time to sit on select committees, to analyse legislation, to think about policy, to listen, to consult.
That would be really popular.
Yeah, former Labour MP Chris Carter coming on the back there, unable to contain his disbelief. So look, is that what we need, more politicians? We'll see it from another angle. Could it be we need more political parties? And Grant, you wrote a very interesting Substack piece on this. Tell the nation, is there actually a case for it?
For more political parties? Well, it's a political question, and therefore it's a question for the voters, because after all, they're the ones who make the decisions. But it seems that MMP has delivered us between 6 and 8 parties at any one time. It's gone as low as 5. It's probably about, on average, it's not a bad number compared to other proportional representation systems. So it's not for me to say that we should have one more or one less, but nonetheless, comparatively speaking, as a system, New Zealand's parliament has ended up to be relatively politically diverse.
Okay.
Not on the other hand with too many parties so that it's highly fragmented and you have difficulty forming governments.
Andrea, are you for more MPs?
I think I've just come out in a rash, Wallace. I'm allergic to that idea.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. We do not need more MPs. 100% no. It's interesting that the issue with more political parties, because that is slightly separate. And I think that in New Zealand, and actually in other Western democracies, the politics is structurally shifting because the two mainstream parties don't dominate anymore. Their vote share has been declining quite a lot recently, and you'll even see that in the most recent polls. And the smaller, what we used to think of as fringe parties, like New Zealand First and ACT, have real leverage. So what we are seeing is voters are actually looking around outside of the mainstream parties that we traditionally, had all the power. They're looking for alternatives away from these legacy parties, and that's giving the minor parties actually an outsized influence in coalition negotiations and in terms of deciding policy and getting policy enacted, and even stopping policy in the current coalition and previous, governing arrangements. So I don't think it's about the number of parties being too many. I think it's about how power is exercised in what we're seeing as a more fragmented system, if that makes sense.
What do you make of that, Wayne?
I don't think it is actually more fragmented. In 1996, the two major parties only had about 66% of the vote. That's more or less the same at present. So it's gone up a little bit, gone down a bit. What we are seeing, I think, is two of the smaller parties really kind of breaking through that 10% range.
Yeah.
And should there be, depending on who wins the election, they'll have more leverage than they've had in the past. We've actually got a pretty stable left-right balance at the moment. There's fundamentally only one party that really trades, if I can put it that way, and that's New Zealand First. I know there was the switch with Te Pāti Mara and its predecessor, the Maori Party. Bit of an unusual situation that, whereas New Zealand First, we know, has got a history. And who's to say that they're locked in to the centre-right? You just don't know that.
No.
It's probably the case, but you don't really know it.
Oh, both really great comments there. And I've been wondering for some time whether New Zealand would, in the longer term, see the kind of party fragmentation that you see in other proportional systems. But at the moment, it's looking fairly stable. However, I think, it is a fair point that some of these smaller parties are growing. New Zealand First has been growing in the polls recently and could do unexpectedly well in the coming election. That's not a prediction. But that kind of fragmentation is starting to occur. It looks like Labour and National are starting to lose their joint domination of the parliament. that can in other countries get quite extreme.
You are on the whip now, finally, on the show. Ring the bells for Christopher Luxon's quarterly action plans. These were a list of 30 or 40 actions handed out every quarter to help focus the public service. They included things like raise the energy New Zealand brings to the key relationships through international engagements. Winston Peters called it dashboard crap, but they've been quietly, that's quite the line, isn't it? Anyway, is it goodbye to running the country on KPIs? Let's go around the panel here. What do you think, Andrea? Is it just management speak, or it was very quietly done?
Do you know one of the golden rules of politics? I'm sure Wayne will agree with me on this. Is you never set a target that you can't meet. If you can't deliver it, don't set it. So they can't meet it, and they've successive plans have drawn negative headlines. So they've dumped it. Of course, they've dumped it. They were always going to dump it.
Were they, Wayne? The idea was that the voter or the public would know what we were getting. You had a report card along the way of life.
Way too detailed. There was something like 90 things in it.
Right.
Yeah, I remember when a former colleague of mine rang me up in the last week of the election and said, Wayne, we've got 5 policies. I know 3 of them, but I can't quite remember the other 2. 90 is too many. And in fact, from Prime Ministers, you really just want to hear their 3 big themes and the things they're going to do to reach them.
Now, there's a sort of a nice sort of slogan for new and upcoming leaders.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Doesn't it?
I remember the first one of those quarterly things that came out. I actually went through all the targets to see how they were doing, but very quickly got bored with that exercise, and I think that the National Party's got bored with it too. But I think that the big thing is this, that they're not meeting their big targets, the big fiscal targets and the health targets, but particularly those big fiscal targets that they set themselves, whether you agree with them or not, they set themselves before the last election. They're simply not going to meet them. And that's the big issue. And those are like 3 major targets.
Very, very interesting. Is it a country being run like a business here, Andrea? Can't do it.
No, it doesn't work. It's businesses are there to deliver profit for the shareholders, and it's just countries are much more complicated than that, and there are gains and losses, and it was always a stupid idea, but the idea of a competent manager coming in to fix the country wasn't a bad political message.
Good on you. Well, it's been a fantastic whip. Andrea Vance, I'll let you get ready for your Swin Lyle Bay tomorrow. Look forward to how it goes. Grant, Duncan, Wayne Mapp, brilliant show. Thank you very much. I'm Wallace Chapman. That was another edition of The Whip. Stay with us because we have Emile Donovan with Nights after the news.